In 1886, in the blazing summer heat, 39 Apaches raced across the desert Southwest, chased by 5,000 American soldiers. They were the only Indian people in the entire nation still fighting the U.S. Army. For many months, the handful of men, women, and children evaded capture, running, running, then running some more, as much as 80 miles a day. Across the nation, Americans were horrified by details of the chase, some real, many exaggerated. 39 people were on the run that summer, but the soldiers were really after only one man. To his hunters, he was a vicious killer, capable of murdering without mercy. To the Apaches, he was more complex, courageous yet vengeful, an unyielding protector of his family's freedom, yet the cause of his people's greatest suffering. In the course of the chase and in the years that followed, he would become a legend and the symbol of the untamed freedom of the American West. His name was Geronimo.
Long ago, Coyote opened a bag of darkness, and it spread over the world. Creatures of the night loved it, but birds and little animals longed for day. The little animals played a game to win back the light. They won, but one night monster remained. After the game, the first human, white painted woman, gave birth to a son. She hid him from the monster. When the boy was grown, he faced the monster and killed it. He was then called Apache. All Chiricahuas are named after him.
Geronimo was born sometime in the 1820s at the headwaters of the Gila River, along the border of what became Arizona and New Mexico. As young as age 6, Geronimo learned to hunt. He would have spent hours crawling along the ground, sneaking up on prey, catching birds with his bare hands. When he made his first kill, he swallowed the animal's heart raw and whole to ensure a life of success on the chase.
Young kids grow up dodging arrows, dodging rocks. They were taught to use the bow and arrow very early. They were taught to run and run and run as young ones. And then as they grew older, they depended on this.
No one is your friend, Geronimo was told, but your legs. Your legs are your friends.
There was always danger. There was always that fear that just around the corner, somebody would be coming across it to take your life.
Surrounded by their traditional enemies, the Utes, the Comanches, the Navajos, the Apache numbered just 8,000 people, split into many tribes.
A lot of people think that Apaches are just one tribe, but they are a group of nations, the separate people with their own history and their own culture and their own territory. The Chiricahua Apaches, which are my people, and we had 4 different groups, 4 bands within that tribe. We had the Cheyenne, who are the Warm Springs Apaches. We had the Chokonen, who lived around the Chiricahua Mountains. There were the Netanai, the band that lived mostly in Mexico.
Geronimo belonged to the smallest band within the Chiricahua tribe, the Bedonkohe. As a teenager, he joined older Bedonkohe men on raiding trips. The raids were lightning-quick attacks. Apaches seized the horses and provisions they wanted before melting into the surrounding country.
There's no getting around the fact that Apache life was built around raiding. They didn't raise horses, they stole horses.
Raiding was a very good way to obtain horses, to obtain cattle, to obtain captives, and there were markets for all of these commodities.
It was common for the Chiricahua, for example, to raid one settlement and trade in another. This had been going on for a great many years.
It wasn't considered by the Apache a crime. You took what you needed, and too bad if the people who owned it got upset.
People looked at the needs of their people, their group of people, and so, hey, we need food, we need ammunition, we need some cattle. And so the raids were planned.
Raiding had been a way of life for the Apaches and their Indian neighbors for generations. But Mexicans living on or near Apache land found it intolerable. In response to the constant theft of property, the Mexican government passed laws offering cash payments for Apache scalps. Soon, bounty hunters were roaming the desert, killing any Indian they could find.
لو scalp doesn't die, ibich aya, ndela na del sekyo. Be tsagahi scalpi, $25 ilile. Istanahi, $50. In Dehi, they get out there, warriors, $100.
In spite of the bounty hunters, the Apaches continued raiding. By the time he was 17, Geronimo had successfully completed 4 raiding expeditions. Now, in the eyes of the Bedonkohe, he was a man. Old enough to join the hunt and choose a wife. He fell hard for a slender young girl named Alope.
I think Alope was, to use a kind of corny Americanism, the love of his life. Geronimo went to Alope's father to ask for her hand in marriage, and the old man said, "It's going to cost you a lot of horses." And I think it's Dad saying, "She's too good for you."
Geronimo disappeared. When he returned several days later, he led a long string of horses. This, Geronimo later explained, was all the marriage ceremony necessary in our tribe. Within a few years, Alope and Geronimo had 3 children. As their young ones grew, the couple celebrated each stage of their lives with age-old rituals.
When the baby is born, there's a small ceremony for the cradle. And then later on, when they start walking, there's another small ceremony for that.
Like most Apache women, Alope pierced her baby's ears to make her children grow faster and bathed them in water steeped with wildflowers to make their skin strong. And just as their parents had done, Alope and Geronimo taught their children to sing prayers to Yusin, the Creator, for health, strength, and wisdom. One day in the early 1850s, Geronimo and his family joined other Chiricahuas on a trading trip. The group camped on the outskirts of a Mexican town called Janos, and the men headed in to trade. On the way back, the Chiricahuas met distraught members of their band. Mexican soldiers had ransacked their camp, the women cried, stealing their ponies and supplies. leaving their wickiups in ruins. The Apaches scattered. That night, Geronimo slipped back into the camp. There he discovered the bodies of his mother, his wife, and his 3 small children, lying in pools of blood.
When he saw all his family massacred there, he cut his hair, and he left his hair there with them. You see all the pictures that were taken, you see their hair short like mine. That was a sign of mourning that they lost someone.
When Geronimo returned home, he ripped down his wife's paintings, tore apart strings of beads she'd made, and gathered his children's toys. And just as Apaches had done for generations when loved ones died, he set everything his wife and children had owned on fire.
Geronimo's attitude changed